I'm inside and I saw a big fish. It is directed by Tim Burton, written by John August. If you haven't seen this movie, I will spoil it for you. This is requested by a Patreon. If you'd like the fast track movie review, patreon.com/ASEPresents. On with the review. The first time I watched this was actually in 9th grade. There was a part of English class where we analyzed movies. We analyzed colors, analyzed the way that it was filmed, and one of the movies that I got to choose to write an essay on was Big Fish. So I remember watching this movie back then, and then I watched it again to refresh upon my memory. This movie starts and we're following a father and son duo. It goes through the months where he tells a lot of tall tales a lot, and his son gets sick of them. He's like, I've heard you say the same thing over and over and over and over again, man. I don't believe you whatsoever. And I'm like, why don't you believe him? Well, he keeps talking about this big old catfish. And I'm like, yeah, big catfish exists. Why don't you believe this? Why don't you believe your old man? But of course, he doesn't believe his father to the extent where he excommunicados. No more communication whatsoever. And then his father has a hospitalization happen. He's sick. And of course, he comes back. The son does. The son comes back, talk to his father. And his father is like, yo, oh my goodness, it's been 3 years. I can't believe it. Wow, you want to hear one of my tall tales? And it seems like his father likes to tell the tall tales, and it's always the same story, so it leads me to believe that it might be true. I don't know why the son doesn't necessarily believe him, although skepticism, how do you pronounce that word? He is skeptical, of course. He is younger, he hasn't seen as much as his dad, so out of sight, out of mind. He's not thinking about what he hasn't seen yet. For the rest of this movie, it's a flashback on his dad's life. And I think Ewan McGregor, he does a great job. I remember I had a list of movies to pick from. I think they're all Tim Burton for some reason, but it was a bunch of Tim Burton movies I could pick from. And I chose this one specifically because during the time I was really interested in Star Wars. I had just freshly seen all of the Star Wars movies. At that time, it was like 2015. It was when Force Awakens was happening, and I'd seen that a few times. And I chose this movie, Ewan McGregor, and was I disappointed? No. He's a good actor. He doesn't at all seem like Obi-Wan Kenobi in this film. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a different portrayal, although he definitely has the same look. There are some actors, not Ewan McGregor, but some actors that look completely different depending on which role they take. And then you have some actors who just look pretty much the same. Like The Rock. He looks the same, but he acts differently, and therefore he has like a different vibe to him in this movie versus a Star Wars film. And then we get another flashback within a flashback. Hey, do you want to hear about how I met my wife? And so we get that. And then the father of the son, or I guess the person in the flashback, he is finding love too, and it's nice and cute. I find it fantastical. A lot of the shots have some sort of mysticalness to it. It has to be the lighting. The lighting's very warm, especially in outdoor shots, and you have just a ton of light, gives it a glow. And it's glowing the entire movie, and it's very tall tale-ish, like the father keeps telling his son. He keeps telling him these stories, and when he flashbacks, of course, it's to differentiate between modern time and flashback, sure, but I do like how the flashbacks are very bright. And he's remembering on his experiences very positively. He's not really remembering any of the negatives, except for some of the negatives that need him to develop as a character so he can get what he wants. His love struggle is a struggle, of course. He tries to marry this chick, but she already has a fiance, and then this fiance of hers beats him up, and so he goes to the Korean War. When was the Korean War? I know it was the one before Vietnam. Was it after World War II? How old is this man? When was the movie made? It was early 2000. Okay. I see now. Yeah, Korean War would work. I do like how in the end, even though there seems a high chance of him failing at every aspect in this movie, he still gets the girl of his dreams, and it's nice and it's cute. I think the best way to describe this movie is whimsical. That's the word I was looking for earlier. whimsical, fantastical, and it reflects because it's his memories versus the real world is more of a cooler tone, which is more reality-based. You got more of the blue tones within the realness, the reality. There's a tinge of sadness to it, and of course his father ends up getting a stroke, which is very sad, and that scene ends up being more blue versus his father's memories are nice and warm to have more of like a warm, happy glow to it, positive experiences. And then after the stroke, the son's like, hey, can you tell me more stories? And I guess it's like some sort of therapy to have him be telling more stories. I like the change because at the very beginning, he didn't like him telling the stories. At the very end, he wanted him to tell him more stories. He should have had more time with his father, but of course, he didn't consider that death happens. He was thinking about himself. As youngins do, they do be doing that. Don't knock them for thinking about themselves. It's the time of their lives for them to be exploring what they want to be doing. I don't fault the kid for doing what he did, which was leaving the family. But he came back at a really crucial time, which is very important. They go to a lake and guess what they find? They find the catfish. The big catfish that his father was telling him about the entire time. And it's a nice little circle thing going on. The circle of everything in this movie, the plot, the life, everything about it is a circle, including the pond. It's a circle. It's all a big circle. I like this movie a lot. What do you think of Big Fish? I like the actors. I think the actors did a good job. Rewatching it again, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I enjoyed it. I feel like I have the same feeling about this movie now than when I first watched it, and I hadn't really seen movies when I first watched this one. And so I think this still holds up. Tim Burton is such a great director, and his color choices are very intentional. The intentionality of the color choices so that there is a tone established just visually that you know what's going to happen in the scene, or something dark's going to happen, or something action is going to happen, or something happy is going to happen based on the color of the scene. And Tim Burton really does that really well in his movies. I like Tim Burton as a director. What do you think of Big Fish? What do you think of this movie? I gotta give it's a solid 7.3 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another on the platform with likes at $20 Dinos, patreon.com/ASEPresents, one movie review for 1 month. Videos like trees towards the daily grindness for all the daily boat reviews. So go here, and until next time in Salad Saw, I'll see you later. My salad croutons and bacon bits. I'm gonna go look for some big fish myself.